and arrow like Cupid. I'm using words that don't mean nothing, like Luke did. I sang on Do What You Like, and if you missed it, I'm the one who said just grab them in the biscuits.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there, this is Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. Today, my third installment of Comic Wars. We're going to talk about some contentious issues having to do with independent comics and the funding thereof. Well, speaking of controversial people, my friend Jared has decided that he's going to throw his hat in the ring and actually do a debate tonight about the merits and drawbacks of the Rippaverse. So may God have mercy on his soul. Anyway, brave man. Having been on the bad end of that particular fan base, I can tell you that they're pretty virulent. So say a prayer for my friend. He's probably going to need it. But I figured he needed a warm up, and so we decided to do this show together. Kind of like to get his feet wet and get the juices flowing. So without further ado, the purveyor and mastermind behind Frost Comics, say hello to Mr. Jared Brickley.
Yes, it is I.
Yeah. Well, for about 2 hours more, anyway.
Right, exactly. Actually, so this is.
I wish.
Don't tell anyone.
Anyway,
this is the secret plan. But don't tell anybody this. This is just between you and me. But
Okay.
I actually secretly hate ISOM, and so really, I'm just using Sam as a patsy to actually say everything I want to say, and then dodge all the heat.
Oh man. Well, good thing you said it where nobody's going to hear it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the secret.
You know,
actually, I think
on my show.
I think my copy of Alpha Core arrived a little bit earlier today. I'll have to actually dig into that at some point.
All right. I'm sure that's probably one of the tweets that was aimed your way.
I'm sure. Yeah.
People on Twitter tend to be pretty divided on the topic of Mr. July.
This is true. This is very true.
Well, the thing about it is
one or the other. It's very extreme.
Conversations have to happen. Yes, extraordinarily extreme. But conversations have to happen though, and one of the biggest like sticking points for a lot of people in indie comics, especially in this space, the crowdfunding space, is are you allowed to say negative things about somebody else's work? Are you allowed to give critique? But all critique seems to be kind of painted as criticism, and criticism and critique are two entirely different animals. And so I thought this is a very good topic of discussion to have, and we've had conversations before that let me know that you've been thinking along these directions, and plus, I've given you some critique, and you've acted upon it, and so in that case, just positive aspect of it. Um, but where does the dividing line when critique becomes criticism? To you, where's that dividing line?
Actually, I kind of talked about this a little bit. So this my point being, this has actually been close to my thoughts for a little while. But I talked a little bit about it in the video where I dove into the whole thing that was going on with Masterson in July. That really, I think a key for a lot of people is to kind of remember, where the criticism or critique, where is it coming from? Because like not everyone is completely genuine with their criticism. And sometimes they're just trying to rile you up, or they're trying to upset you, and it's not necessarily coming from some place where the intentions are right. I've had a couple of people that I love tear stuff that I've written apart. But like it I mean, if you're sensitive to your work, of course you're kind of like, oh, that hurts, but like at the same time, if you know the person, if you're friends with the person, you trust them, you understand that when they say stuff, especially the way that they word it, they're saying stuff because it's coming from a place of like genuine desire to help you improve as a writer or as an artist. So really, if you know the person and you know how they're coming at it, I think that really softens the blow, at least for me personally. I would hope that it would be that way for a lot of people.
Right.
There are sometimes like there are good and bad criticisms too. Like even if someone has the best of intentions, if they evaluate something wrong, or I mean, some stuff is just opinion, but some stuff they might think something and you just disagree with it. And that's also okay. As long as you can kind of see where everyone's coming from. Ultimately, as a creator, it's your decision on what you do or do not change or implement, or however you go with it. But like to kind of think back to what the starting point, I guess maybe the starting point was between Dick Masterson and Eric July. They were both on a stream together, and Dick Masterson's critiques, some of them I think were genuinely good, useful critiques. I thought that, like, if you looked at his list, like, okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Some of his stuff was, you don't do this because reason. And like, that's not really useful. Like, you can do whatever you want in a story. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. But like, even some of the rules you can kind of play fast and loose with if what you're writing is good. So some of his critiques were bad, some of his critiques were good. But the way he presented them also just sucked. Like he Eric's not super receptive to most criticism publicly,
Really?
because of the way that people approach it. And that certainly did not change with Dick Masterson's approach to it.
Right. Well, the thing about critique as opposed to criticism, what put me on the map, or in the crosshairs, however you want to put it, was this little rant that I made. This was concerning the Expendables Goes to Hell. And there towards the end, I tagged on a criticism of the campaign itself. And it pretty much speaks for itself. But I want you to see if you can see where the line. I wound up having to apologize for some things I said when I was confronted with it later.
All right.
So I'll let you listen to it and let me know where you thought that I needed to apologize, or if I needed to apologize at all. Okay, let's play it. Roll this beautiful bean footage. Here we go. And he's a sweet guy, and I wanted to support him. Unfortunately, he's doing splatter, but he's a good guy. Anyway, this book should have been berserker size. It should have gone by EVS and Cyberfrock. It should have been bigger than Cyberfrock. This should have been berserker numbers. This right here. if it had been concentrated on, if he had showed up in live streams, if he had done any promotion whatsoever for this, and then this would have been a hit that the mainstream would have known about. This would have been shown. It showed up in major publications when this came out. It was in major publications, not just comic book webs, comic book, Bleeding Cool or whatever these websites is. This would have been mainstream news, like Berserker was. This had all the potential, and it went nowhere. And it went nowhere because Zach was the one that got it. I mean, EVS knew. I mean, EVS is, kind of up his own ass, but EVS knew this should have been huge. And he said so on his channel. One of the few times I agreed with him about something. But that's the rant.
So, who did you have to apologize to?
Well, I wound up EVS mentioned on stream that that he perceived that I didn't like him, that he was up his own ass, and immediately I was like, oh shit, he is right. pointing me out as the enemy, and I'm not, and so the valuation came that while I had legitimate critique going on, I had a legitimate critique. I went over into criticism when I slipped over into personal attack, and he was kind of like
it definitely comes across to me as legitimate. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious whenever you listen to any of your reviews about any comic book that you're talking about. I think when you're passionate about it, it comes through. I think it came through there. I can see why people wouldn't appreciate some of the final comments. Like, yeah, I guess I could see why you wouldn't appreciate someone saying that you were up your own ass. I can understand why that would be somewhat upsetting, but at the same time, there are so many people taking so many shots at EVS so constantly. I'm surprised that you just have this way of agitating really large channels, don't you? I don't quite know how you do that.
I wish I knew. I had somebody say that, there's people that rant about EVS and just, paint the air blue and question everything, including his parentage. And he never says boo. And you make that one offhand comment, and he's like, he ruminates on it. It bothers him, and
that's weird. It's like I don't know. It's like you're blessed. It's like you got like a monkey paw effect or something, and you wished to be able to get the attention of larger channels, and like you got it, but then the paw curled. Then it's like the other side of that is that you only get it for negative reasons. It's never for positive.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I definitely wish I could figure out what the secret is, so I could use it for good instead of evil. But yeah, I had legitimate criticisms. I had legitimate, critique.
Yeah.
I had legitimate critique going on, and but when I got petty with it, when I slipped over to like petty grudge or whatever,
well,
his EVS up his own ass. He admits it.
You're
occasionally he is.
You're also trying to get people
to saying it in that way.
Pay attention to your show. So like, and I mean, I think that's where a lot of the sensitivity for people comes from. It's like if you went after EVS's art and you said, like, I think that this, yes, it's very well detailed, but I don't like the angles on this, or I don't like the way this is drawn, or I think that the there's not enough background, foreground, whatever critique you had. Like I don't think he would care. It's like, it's when you start to get, and I don't mean you necessarily you, but like generally, like when people are talking about anything that they're critiquing, it's when they get really hyperbolic. I think that's when it tends to like agitate people, and they say, well, wait a minute, because if you're just like, if you're breaking it down, like, you know, okay, like artistically speaking, these are things that I would consider flaws, this is what I would change, this is how I would change it, that's different from yeah, this guy's up his own ass, you know, like that's and I mean, even if the person is up his own ass, it's still something that is different to hear. So that could be where a lot of people, where they
we'll
would
see.
draw
We'll
the
see.
line necessarily.
That insult. That was like. But that was like it was like I slipped it in, sold into actually a compliment. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
EVS knows that this. You know, EVS saw it. You know.
Well, yeah,
But,
your entire
where
point
it
was
slipped
that
over
he
was
should have been more
when
involved.
Right. Well, that Richard should have been
Well,
more
yes.
involved with his own damn IP. You know, the IP that was handed to him. Nobody to this day, nobody has ever gotten that big of an opportunity in CG, and he just got another one. You know what? Critical ADD Money's called Critical Drinker pushed it. I mean, Richard did the same thing. You know, I did a thing.
Ow.
You know, moving on, and whatever's screwed up in that guy's head, I have no idea what's screwed up in that guy's head. But he disdains any kind of success he has, and I've never understood that. He could have an empire, and
This is
and yet
this is
he just
Richard
middles abound,
Meyer?
does his own. Your boy Zach,
Yeah, Zach. Okay, he
Sweato
did Jawbreakers, right? I'm trying to remember what his portfolio was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Jawbreakers is his biggie. Yeah,
Yeah.
But in EVS at one point, I offered to take that off his hands.
Oh, really?
It could have been under all caps at one point. Yeah.
Huh.
But
You know, I said no.
But then he's like, if you're this flaky or this early on, well, he just flaked out on EVS, and EVS is like, if you're this flaky now, it's going to be a nightmare later on. I don't need this in my life. And so pretty much the same thing, missed emails, missed meetings, meandering, dragging feet, you know, doing, you know, odd things at odd times, you know. How the guy just kind of fell into becoming a voice of a movement, you know, with diversity in comics, and he hit their radar, and they all attacked him. But the same thing that allowed him to stand up to those attacks have just destroyed him from then on. The same kind of like insouciance that he goes around his life with that allowed him to like be called Nazi 24/7 and attacked online, you know, constantly, and be able to stand up to it. You know, it's now seen as like being distanced from his fans, you know. And he basically doesn't take any critique on board. I mean, he was 8 campaigns behind, and he put out another campaign, which at that
Holy crap,
time was Rock and Roll Ninja, and then complained that not enough people backed it. And his conclusion, crowdfunding must be over now.
I
kid you not, 8 campaigns behind.
All right,
8 campaigns behind at one point. And he was saying, "Oh, people, I guess crowdfunding is going away." Now, that's an example of someone who doesn't take any kind of critique on board, sees it all as criticism and validates it.
Wow.
Basically.
Wow.
And like, dude, don't put out any more stuff until you fulfill the stuff you got. And yet, there's a new book. Imagine if you were handed enough money to produce whatever the hell you want to, whenever the hell you want to do it.
Dude, no
Imagine
kidding.
how you'd abuse that. Well, that's what happened. I mean, I have this literally happened. He's like, I got this idea, hey, let me talk to Narwhal. Book came out 5 months later. He's doing a campaign for it. Just mentioned it on the stream. He's like, I had this idea the other day. I talked to somebody, and then five months later, he's doing a stream or doing a campaign with Narwhal. It's the first Narzak book. I mean, and by the way, at that time, he was like 4 campaigns behind, 4 or 5 campaigns behind. Yeah. So.
Wow. Oh, man.
Alrighty. So yeah, there was a legitimate critique to be had right there.
I guess part of it is like,
looks like I've got some mail.
What's up, Ken B? How's it going, buddy?
What's up, Ken B? Mm-hmm.
I guess when you
link.
Yeah, that's the upcoming show after ours for the debate. Sent that out.
Okay.
Or about to send that on X because I can't send it out on Twitter. And no, I guess part of it is like if you're really successful, I guess you'd be I don't want to say hesitant, but like certainly more maybe hesitant is the right word. Maybe more hesitant towards critique because like you might be thinking, well, okay, I clearly know what I'm doing, because I've crowdfunded 8 books or something like that, or or I've made however much money or something like that. But I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't do better or make more or see different kinds of success. But I guess it, I'm not in this position yet, obviously. So it's hard for me to imagine it. But like if I had like a book that had 200 backers or something, and everybody loved it, and I was suddenly like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about, and someone wanted to come at me and say that I'm doing this, and this wrong. I guess I could see why people would be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? But I mean, it's still worth considering. I think it's still worth considering like critiques that come your way, as long as it's coming from people who are doing it with the right mindset.
Well, one thing about that. Sorry, my internet's just dropping on me. Don't mean
I'm
to
staying
drag
connected
or
to you, but
anything.
I think there's just some lag. So I apologize if I talk too much. While it catches up.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if I talk over you, I apologize. Yes. Okay. Now, the problems with anybody that knows the art form of writing knows that anybody who is going to write anything for their first project doesn't want eyes on it, doesn't want it to be the first thing people see from them. Just like Todd McFarlane wouldn't want of anybody to see his notebook scribblings when he was in high school, which he's post in, but because he's Todd freaking Farland now, so he didn't care. But if that was the first thing that people saw from him, nobody would believe in him, or nobody would have hired him for a job. Um, but the bottom line is writing is an art form, and it is not tertiary. It is the ground basis for any book. And you can bring Jack Kirby back from the dead, and if you hit him a crappy script, it's still going to be a crappy comic.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. But at the same time, you were saying things like he didn't have a script editor, he didn't have a book editor, he didn't have any eyes on it but his own. And so what you knew just from before he even launched, you knew it was going to be it's going to have writing problems. Even if he was talented, it was going to have writing problems.
Yeah.
Because there's things that you have to work out.
Yeah.
Before your stuff sees the light of day. It took me years before I wrote something I thought was truly good. It was really good. Just like any artist will draw and draw and draw, and then suddenly one day he draws something that he thinks is, oh wow, I might have something here. It's the same with writing, and so it's basically there was a built-in problem that ISOM was facing. From its inception, it was going to face this problem, and that is, it was not going to have good writing. Even no matter how talented he is, no matter how much he loves comic books, no matter how many years he spent reading comic books, if you've never written anything creatively, then you don't put a book out there for millions of people to buy. That's your very first thing. And that conflict was going to arise. Everybody could see it coming. I mean, everybody could see it coming. And I don't even have to get ISOM to know the issues that it was going to have, because it's the issues that every single person writing their first stuff is going to have. There's just and I see this over and over again when I first started hearing this attitude that anybody can write, coming from people who left the mainstream and came into the space, and they said something like, anybody can write, we don't need writers, And as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get books that are basically people's first shot at writing anything. And sure enough, I've got some really, really crappy books, and from really talented people, incredible art, but the writing sucks, and it just does. And but the thing about this, though, is that's a genuine critique.
Yeah.
That this attitude that people have in this world that I can do anything. I could do anything. My mommy told me I could do anything. Oh, I got a participation ribbon, participation ribbon, the certain things you're not talented enough for, you're not physically equipped for. You just don't have, I can't play center for the Knicks. I'm 5'9".
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I won't be able to play center for the Knicks, but yet I've seen so many young black men that I worked with that are like 25 years old, and they have bad knees and hips because they spent years grinding on a court playing street ball.
Yep.
Just because they thought that was their shot, because nobody told them, you're never going to make the NBA, kid. Look for something else. Look to do something else. And there's a reason, but the bottom, they didn't get that critique, and the victim mindset that a lot of people have means that they can't take critique on board. It always is criticism to them. Would you agree with that?
A big part of the problem too, is that, like, there's two components to it, and you hit the nail on the head touching on one of them. What's up, Wolfler? You're absolutely correct. There are physical realities that make some things impossible. I actually used to play basketball, right? I'm tall. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 6 feet tall, but 6 feet tall is a midget when it comes to basketball. So me being tall is not tall enough to be tall for basketball. So, you know, I played basketball when I was an adolescent, and I shot up. You know, I got to, by the time I was 12, I was like 5'10" or 11, and you know, got the last couple inches of height as I went into my teenage years. So when I was playing basketball as a teen, you know, adolescent, and everything, I was tall then, so I learned how to play at a center position then. But then when you get into high school and you don't continue to grow, you know, the skills that I spent, you know, basketball camps and everything learning, they're not really relevant to me anymore because I'm not tall enough anymore. Doesn't matter how good I am at boxing somebody out. If he's got 8 inches of height on me, he just sticks his hands up and he's going to grip the ball faster than me. It doesn't matter how much I'm trying or whatever else. So there's a physical reality, which is absolutely true. There's the other part of it is that it's freaking work, man. Like I can't. I could teach myself how to draw as well as someone that I pay to draw for me. If I spent the decades of dedication to learning the craft, I could probably become as good as the greats. But I have not done that. You know, I just haven't done it for whatever reason that I haven't. And so I could, in the same way that like there are people who have a natural inclination towards writing that might be better writers than other people, but there's still work to writing. Writing is a tremendous amount of work. I was talking to a couple of friends earlier today while I was going about my day job. We were talking, and it came up like we were talking about the show Loki, and someone was like, "Oh, I did you see this? It was such an interesting concept of time travel." I said, "Yes, I've heard about Loki. It's shit." And I was explaining like why, as far as like from a writing perspective, how they butcher the character, they butcher the lore, they butcher the world building, they butcher the plot of previous works in the MCU, all in this badly written show because the show was so botched that it didn't just mess up the show, it messed up everything retroactively and to come after it. And it's like, I see that, and it's frustrating because like I spend hours, you know, crafting working on my writing, working on my script. I redraft it, I edit, I send it to people to review it, get opinions on it. Okay, what worked, what doesn't, how do I adjust it? You know, send it to the artist. What does the artist think? You know, all this stuff that I do because I want it to be airtight. I want it to be as consistent as possible and all these things. And that's all work. I enjoy it, but it's work. And so then you take what exists now in the mainstream, something like Loki or something in comics or whatever, and people just fart out this crap, this just poorly written, just garbage. And no one in there, they have no one who checks it. They have editors who either don't care or don't notice mistakes. I don't know which, but it's astonishing to me because like this is like kind of a separate rant, but like you and I have spent, a large portion of our lives consuming, comic books, TV shows, movies, and stuff that's based on source material that we respect. So when we respect the source material enough that I wouldn't do that because that's disrespectful to the source material. That's disrespectful to the original lore. That's disrespectful to the previous films. When you see people who don't have that same level of respect for the source material, it's very frustrating. And then when you compare it to your own work, I respect my own work so much that I'm going to dedicate time and resources and blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, over making sure that I've got it as good as it can be. When you see someone who doesn't give themselves or their own work that same level of dedication, or they don't give that same level of dedication to stuff that they're drawing from for inspiration, it is frustrating. And it's easy to kind of bring this back on topic. It's very easy for that frustration to boil over and turn from something that is a critique into just a rant, like frustration. Like, I love this. You have screwed this up monumentally. And it's, it becomes angering because you think, why would you do this when you had all this, you had all the resources in the world, you had the backing of a major corporation, you had the backing of all this stuff. And we're over here scrounging for the scraps that we can to try and tell the best story possible, while people who are just like surrounded by this opulence, this embarrassment of riches and resources are producing nothing. And it's sometimes it's very frustrating, and it's very easy to allow that to morph your critique or your criticism into something that is a little more personal.
Right. But because I honestly think that one of the things that the mainstream's attempted to do is they think if they get rid of all their critics, who aren't under their control, who don't, that they can't bribe with access. If they get rid of all the critics that actually love the lore, actually love the IPs, actually know why, you can't make Peter Parker gay. I mean, people that
Right.
actually have spent time, crawling through loan boxes in elusive Spider-Man number 128, to complete my collection. And so what they don't like is the fact that we know that they're full of shit.
Yeah.
We know they're screwing up. We know that they're not up to par. We know that, and that where they're living, in this enclave that they're living in, their arbitrary characteristics basically make them immune from any kind of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody comes back into it from outside and says, well, when they're being told, because you're this, that, and another ethnicity, or this, that, and other sexuality, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, and anything you produce is nectar from heaven,
Yeah.
And then somebody from outside says, I'm sorry, but Iceman's not gay. You can't make Iceman gay. Bobby Drake is a man whore and has been sleeping around since the beginning, his inception, with every chick that would have him. So you cannot make that guy gay and make it make sense. And then say, oh, well, you've always been gay. No, he hasn't always been gay. And then you turn around and make him as flamboyantly gay as possible. Now I can see somebody like realizing, okay, I'm a little bisexual, but even then he's going to act exactly like he did before. He's not going to say, oh, I'm gay. Okay. Hi. That's not going to happen. But because this guy who was writing him, wrote him like somebody straight out of the, Fulton Street Fair, with a, with
all those women,
on.
he never once realized that he thought vagina was icky, not a single time. So weird.
Right. But see, they think that any kind of critique is criticism because they should be immune from it. You're misogynist, you're homophobic, you're all the istophobes, okay?
Yes.
But the thing about it is they're never going to get better. They're never going to improve. They're never going to figure out where they've screwed up. Why? Because nobody is going to dare tell them. But otherwise, they'll get the same labels that are slapped on those of us who complain about it. And you're not supposed to.
Exactly the case. But I mean, the only way, because you're completely right. And so is can be. Although I will
shots
say,
fired.
In defense of basketball, at least no one has been killed on the court in basketball, at least professional basketball, which you can no longer say about the NHL. That's shockingly. But I guess that could make it like even cooler to like a certain subset of fans who are like, they like their sports like ultra hardcore. So I mean, I guess if that's your thing, right? So
well, I don't remember anybody getting fatally slashed through the neck on the basketball court. Just saying.
Right. Not yet. I mean,
not yet.
I guess there's time. There was the brawl in Detroit, but they didn't have any knives when Rasheed Wallace was rushing down the fans back then. So I guess it was cool. To go back to your point though, then one will tell them that they're their art is bad, or they won't critique it, and as a result of that, you have people who will continue to turn out garbage. But they have largely not cared for a long time because of the way that the system has changed so much in the last couple of decades. So historically, Marvel would have cared a great deal about dwindling sales and bad numbers as far as like issues and things of that nature. Then so Disney buys them out, so now they're really not even
Right.
It's really irrelevant whether or not their publishing is even bought. Like they don't really care, because now, and it's like when Disney bought them and they bought Fox, the only reason they bought them was so they could make money off of the intellectual property. So Marvel's really just an intellectual property farmhouse more than they're actually a publishing division anymore. So the stories are irrelevant. They don't care about them. Disney doesn't care about them. They care about the IP.
No.
And if the IP continues to make money, then they're happy. The problem for that is that, I mean, like, not that we didn't call this, and by we, I mean like the broader culture of internet nerds. Eventually, people are going to stop seeing the movies or buying the toys or buying the games or whatever, because you're going to get to a point where it will be, you're going to saturate your own IP with junk where no one actually cares anymore. And you started, like, we've finally seen it. It's finally happening with the MCU. And it certainly took long enough, but it's finally happening where no one cares.
Yeah.
You have the biggest flop, and it's after a series of flops where Marvel's was bad. Yeah, but like there was a domino effect leading up to Marvel's where everything before it was doing terribly. And so now we're living now in a post Marvel's MCU where this has finally happened, and they've said, oh God, okay, maybe we do need to take stock of this. And it's nothing that someone couldn't have told them, but they just didn't care, because it's easier. Look, all these misogynists, they'll go away. We just have to make fun of them enough, and they'll go away, and then everyone will see how great everything that we're writing is. Then they'll come see the movies. Except that didn't happen, because it's genuinely terrible. You can call us whatever you want, but it's still a bad product, no matter what you want to pretend or political opinions makes about our art opinion.
Well, the director of Marvels is a good example of this. Okay. This young black lady never did any kind of special effects. Never dealt with special effects. Never dealt with a massive cast. Never dealt with something on that level, tentpole. She had independent films with one or two actors. Two of them, I think it was two of them. That's all she ever did. They basically gave her this job because she checked a box. Yep. They didn't look at competence. They didn't look at maybe in a few years, if she has experience like with smaller indie films that actually had a budget, there actually had some kind of special effects, maybe she would be ready for something like this. But they threw her in the deep end because she was black, and she's a black director. And when it opened up and it just completely tanked on the first day, their reaction was, well, it's the largest opening for a black female director in history.
Yeah.
That was what they were touting about it, right? Like, that's it's also the biggest turkey that Marvel ever laid, and it's got her name on it.
Yeah, what a thing to have associated with you forever.
Well, she left in the middle of production, in post-production. She left to do another indie movie. I mean, that's how arrogant she is. And then what happens? The thing comes out and tanks. And she had a list of epithets towards the fans about this long. I mean, some combinations I haven't heard before. We're and it's like first of all, being a black lady doesn't make you automatically competent. It just doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't. What?
Your identity has nothing to do with your competency. It doesn't.
Shocking.
That explains AOC, doesn't it? Anyway.
I'm not going to try to explain
but the thing
AOC.
about this,
don't ask me to explain that.
It's because they're living in these enclaves where No, no, yeah, but because they live in this enclave where that's the equivalent, Okay, what color skin are you? Okay, you're moved to the front of the line.
Yeah.
But that they don't get critique, and they everything criticism, and to play the victim card, and they never get better. They never have a chance. We'll never know if she could have been good. We'll never know if she could have handled this in a few years with a little critique, with a little bit of encouragement, with a little bit of doing smaller projects and working your way up like people used to. They took this lady because she's a black director in the space, a black female director, plugged her into this movie and this turkey with unpopular characters, with one of the most unpopular actresses working today, and with an IP that has been rebooted 17 times in less than 10 years, and still tanks every single time. And they handed that to her and said, "Make it work." And that whole line, "Black girl magic." I guess they assumed that she had it. I don't know. But the thing about this is not a critique of. It's not about her skin color. It's not about her ethnicity, or her gender. What it is about is, do you have the skill set? She didn't have the skill set, and so they stuck her into this thing. And I mean, they stuck Paul Feig in charge of 2016 Ghostbusters, because they took a look at Bridesmaids and said, "Oh, we need to put that guy in front of us of a science fiction property." And what do they get? They got a bunch of improv and dance scenes, which is what Paul Feig does. Okay.
I think we all can admit that we think of dance scenes when we think of Ghostbusters, right? Come on, let's be honest.
Fair enough. All right, I get caught up over here. They don't want you.
Hey, chat. What's up, chat? How's it going? How's it going tonight, guys?
SD weird fetish therapy. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna have to disagree with that one. This is beach volleyball, and yeah. Anyway, with Gabrielle Union. Remember Gabrielle Union? Anyway, hell. Stop being racist, Bunny. I apologize. Yeah, as a white man, I can't help it. It's ingrained. All right. Anyway, is it gonna post? Come on. There we go. Playing on soft courts apparently help volleyball to the death. What kind of well, if you stick trans in there with them, yeah, because we had a woman that's got her skull cracked by a trans athlete on the volleyball court here in North Carolina. Cracked her damn skull with a volleyball on a spike.
That's a real life lady ballers
there you
moment.
Go. So I guess that's volleyball to the death. There you go. Almost feel bad for the little girl. Well, you saw what she called you. You probably won't feel bad anymore. I'm late, but John? I made it. Frying up some chicken and fries for the kiddos. Miss fries. Damn it, I miss fries. Anyway. Okay,
you're all healthy and stuff now, right? You can't do any fries anymore.
No, I can't. I'm down 30 pounds, so I can't.
Nice. Well, that's worth.
Anyway, you don't know how much I love fries. Anyway, yeah. All right. So. All right. Okay. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, they can. Yeah. So, but it's like it's kind of like the WNBA work, And it's like, well, because it's a poor product, it's not as entertaining. And but they're like,
Yeah.
well, you know, so thank you, man. Um, but the thing about it is you're not allowed to critique the product, and so they set the girl up failure notes. She take all the flack, gets their diversity trophies. Yeah, yep. She they did set her up. But the bad thing about it is what critique does is critique comes from a place of respect. Critique
Yeah.
comes from a place of rooting for someone to succeed. Critique comes from a place of encouragement, and
Mhm.
and criticism basically just comes from wanting to tear somebody down, wanted some to damage somebody's psyche, to want to damage their ability to create. And you hear about some of the god awful things that were done. Some of these like young actresses in early Hollywood.
Mhm.
There was this chick named Deanna alongside of a young girl named Frances Gum, who later became Judy Garland. Okay, Selzman, who's a all-time colossal bastard. I mean, there's nightmare stories about him. He comes in there, and he sees them both audition, and he's like, "Lose the other one, keep the fat one." And that was his instructions, and he left. And they kept Deanna Durbin, and they sent Judy Garland because he thought Judy Garland was fat. And Judy Garland, and that's one of the things. That's why she had so many diet pills that killed her health, because she always had that built into her that people thought she was fat. I mean, you see her in Wizard of Oz. That girl was not fat.
No.
She was healthy looking. It's just
Yeah.
she had the farm girl
Just looked
look.
like
She
a
looked like Dorothy
normal
Gale.
woman.
Exactly. One of the all-time best voices that God ever put in a woman. But the thing about it is, though, is that was criticism. That was a critique. That was criticism. Because criticism really doesn't have much to do with the person being criticized. Now, critique is completely person-centric. Criticism is aimed in the direction of somebody. It's like just firing a machine gun into a crowd, and is meant to do damage. And there's between that, and the way you can tell between critique and criticism is specificity. Oh, so what do you think about that?
Well, let me tell you a story about when I used to do video game reviews. So, way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I was trying to break into written media out of college, I was doing video game reviews, and I actually got some. I wouldn't say high profile, but I got some pretty decent jobs writing game reviews for independent journalism websites that were dedicated to the Xbox specifically. And I'd written a lot of different reviews for a lot of different styles of games, and eventually I got to a point where I was writing reviews for games like Madagascar, the movie game, stuff like that. And so I was doing games that I wanted to do and games I did not want to do, and I would do my very best, I really would, to try to play the game and to give it an honest score. And I remember, I think it was Madagascar 2, actually. And I got this game, and I'm playing the game, I'm trying to enjoy it as much as I can, playing Madagascar 2 for Xbox 360. And I'm playing the game, and it's fine. It's like it's fine. I'm not like, oh my god, I'm not having a great time with it, but I'm like, it's not a bad game. It's fine. I can see how if you got kids and they love Madagascar, and you're like, well, I'm not going to go see that movie for a third time. My God, I'll buy them the game on the Xbox, because then they can play the Madagascar game, and they can do that on their own while I go, read or watch the news or do, old parent stuff, whatever, So I think I gave it a fairly high score. I think I gave it like a 6 or a 7, and out of 10, it's not a bad score, really. Objectively, that's not a bad score, because 5 is right in the middle of the road, and you're saying it's better than middle of the road. It's actually a pretty good score, and I specified why I thought that it was a 6 or a 7. I said that the music was catchy and energetic. The gameplay is fine. There's really not any bugs that I've noticed. That the graphics look authentic. They look like the characters from the movie. It looks like you're watching the movie take place in the video game. So I'm like, if you want to give this to your kids, it seems like a good thing to give to your kids. It's not a bad score, not a bad review. I just said it's fine. It does what it's supposed to do. 6, 7, whatever. I would say that is criticism rather than critique, because I wasn't really giving the developer any insight. I wasn't saying, as a game designer, as a game developer, you should do this. Here's what I would change. I wasn't doing that. It was, I was acting as a critic, providing criticism, saying to the audience, you might like or dislike this, and this is why you might want it or not want it. The funny part of the story is that my editor and me both got a very angry email from one of the developers on the game, because this was back when I think it was EA and Activision and all of the really big companies. They had metric requirements attached to staff payment bonuses. So if you hit a certain Metacritic average, your staff would receive a bonus to your paycheck. And if they had received like a certain level, they would have hit that bonus. But like, he picked out my review as being like, 6 or 7. If I had just given it an 8 or a 9, then the average would have been higher and he would have gotten a bonus. And he was pissed off at me. He cited my review and emailed me. He emailed a bunch of people he was really mad at. And it just was, he was citing my review, and I was included in them along with my editor, for why he was like just absolutely furious that he didn't get a bonus. I'm as sympathetic in the world to anybody who's trying to make money. But at the same time, I was just providing an honest criticism that was directed towards people who were going to be spending hard-earned money. So
Right.
I'm sorry that your company sucks and they won't give you more money unless you get some arbitrary number from critics and it's not tied to sales. That's weird. I'm sorry about that, but like, it's weird to get angry that the person who's divorced from you, that's not, I cannot critique what he's doing. I'm not a developer. I can only act as a critic of the art and say,
Right.
If you want this, it has it. If you don't want this, it doesn't. Spend your money on accordingly. My editor, to his credit, stuck up for me and got up the dude's ass in a reply. But it was definitely one of the strangest experiences I've ever had, as far as like dealing with, being a critic and how the critique and the critical process kind of like plays together. It's very interesting.
Right. You're right, can be. They'll just find somebody else's person of color, and throw them to the wolves. Well, the thing about it is, I'm pretty sure that my comic reviews may have hurt me in some ways. I know that Kimosabe has made statements that he's got a hell of a book, company man. That should have been bigger. I mean, it's a really well written book. Has one of the most iconic moments in CC Comics so far to me. He's got a speedster that outran his backup and went up in the middle of an ambush. I never thought about how crappy it must be to be a speedster, but then I was like, oh shit, if you're a speedster, man. Yeah, if you're a speedster, it's like, man, you're right over your head all the time. They're like way back here, But it's just like one of the real iconic moments of comic books for me. But he did like a comic book reviews, and he's fair. I mean, he's very fair. He knows exactly what he's talking about when he talks about these things, and he's always taken a lot of heat for it. He's always had people kind of like say, "Oh, he's too negative. He's negative." He's judgmental. But
Yeah.
and if you become a critic, a real true critic, you will get that perception that you're being too negative. I get say, oh, Bunny, man, I just like, nothing's good enough for you, blah blah blah. And there's people in our community that pretty much nothing is good enough for them. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I just know
That's true. That is true.
I just know what is good when I look at it. Uh, but the bottom line is, unless somebody says there's a standard that we're not meeting here, there's a level that we're not meeting, and no one is ever going to strive for something better. Now, there's been a lot of critics, people that hold that title, that just spend their time destroying people.
Yeah.
That there's been some pretty infamous critics over the years, but then there's people like, I'll say Chris Gore and Adeline from Film Threat. If they review a movie, I believe in their heart, and so I believe that they're going to tell me the truth about it. But the heart of a true critic is criticisms like I would automatically consider negative because of these bad eggs. But the truth of the matter is you need some people to evaluate. You need some people to watch your floor exercise, and because you're never going to know how good you can get. You never know how good you're going to go. Mary Lou Retton's Perfect 10. It's just still to this day like one of the iconic moments of Olympics. The reason she earned that 10. But because those judges were so tough, the fact that she made that 10 meant that she reached the level of perfection, and so the critiquing has its place, has a very legitimate place, and because of this, all the destroy people, we're getting lumped in with the people who truly are critiquing and truly want people to succeed, want people to strive for better. It's like I've got Aaron Lopresti's second book over here, Wraith of God, and his first book, I could tell that he had some writing experience, but I could tell that he must be a little rusty, because I could tell the improvement as he went through that script, that he was shaking off some rust. And the reason I got the second book was I wanted to see how far he went once he got warmed up. And but me saying that would be to see, as nice as Aaron is, and Aaron Shelley are the salt of the earth. I don't think you're going to find people nicer. But it wouldn't behoove him, or it wouldn't help him for somebody just don't worry about getting any better, or don't worry about improving. This is the best you can do. You're good. And I think a lot of these big guys who get 6-figure campaigns, if they just take a dump in the box and it doesn't matter, because it's mostly people that just buy their comics, to put it on the shelf, to slab it and make it a commodity. But I don't think that helps them, because it's like Shane Davis. There's a light year of difference between Starlight Cats and Glorious Rex. And the Glorious Rex made way more money. And the second Glorious Rex 2 made even more money than Glorious Rex 1. But that book, if I would give Starlight Cats about a 9.5. And I would give Glorious Rex a 5. It's that far fall off. But technically, it's more successful with that second book. Technically, he's more successful. I didn't like the flying kitties, but I do like the big giant kaiju. It's a better sell, right?
Yeah,
But it's not as
certainly.
good of a book. But he doesn't need to be good because evidently
That's
he
true.
doesn't need to be good. He can just like throw out whatever and it'll be six figures. But
Well, it's
somewhere,
to that point.
and
I
that's
mean,
not
think
going to
about
matter in
Eric
the long
July,
run.
because Eric July, his first book made $3.7 million. And I mean, even whether you think that it is written like crap or you think that it is written like Shakespearean prose, it doesn't matter. You didn't know. $3.7 million didn't know when it made $3.7 million. The first book was sold on Eric July's name and on his platform and on his reputation as someone who loves comic books. And so, the quality was irrelevant. We'll talk about the quality later tonight, but that doesn't matter to a lot of those people. And a lot of
Right.
it's what is it Luke says, he says that if you keep half of your audience from book 1 to book 2, then you've been successful. And Eric July, he did that. He managed to keep half of his audience from ISOM 1 to ISOM 2, if you look at the number of books sold and everything. So he was successful with that. But that also means that, probably half of the people there were like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And half the people there were like, it's not really for me. So you have that where, it's like exactly like you were saying, some people are going to be successful because of who they are. And I don't begrudge them that, but it does mean that you can definitely take shortcuts that you aren't afforded if you are trying to, scrap and scrape your way up as an up and comer. If you're established or if you've paid your dues in the comic industry and you're now switching over to campaigns that are crowdfunded, then you have a little. And I mean, I say pay your dues because like you've earned it, but you've certainly reached a point where you can play a little more fast and loose with some of the things that other people can't.
Well, one thing that an editor does, and it's the reason why I pay attention if the big guys have an editor, like Eric July, is because even if you got people that will critique you because you're so big or because they're so in awe of you, or because they're kind of afraid to say anything in his case because that crowd that he's got following him are just monsters. But the thing about it is, though, is if he has an editor, he has built-in critique. Ways to improve, ways to hone.
That's true.
Ways to get better.
Yeah.
And so, even if you don't have a writer, if you have a competent editor, that makes up for a lot. It makes up for a lot. And so I'm very happy to see him starting to work with other people, starting to get other eyes on his work, and starting maybe, pay more attention to the craft and just instead of just assuming,
Yeah.
And if he does that, then Ripaverse has a future. But the bottom line is what critique is critique is a measuring stick. It's a canon. It's a way of determining where you are and just how far you have to go.
Yeah.
And so people that don't get criticism like the mainstream, I can't criticize you. Those people will never reach their potential. They'll never know how good they could be. And they'll just turn out crap. And then when it's the audience, and the audience says, hey, this is crap, they're going to like, victim card, it must be criticism because I was told all these other people that I'm wonderful. And they can't handle it. And so they attack fans. And that's
it's one of the reasons why I try to pay attention to everybody. and listen to the EVSs as much as I listen to, Eric. If they're feuding, I'm still going to listen to what both people are doing. I'm going to listen to JDA. I'm going to listen to everyone, who has opinions, politically and artistically that I may agree with sometimes or disagree with sometimes, because they do bring up different perspectives and different points, and you can learn something from pretty much everybody that's been doing this for as long as a lot of these people have. EVS had an amazingly good point recently when he was talking about how, all the people who have been literally making a living, making income off of critiquing the mainstream, they have demonstrated an inability to take criticism of their own work. And that's very true. A lot of the people who are really able to hurl a stone, they sure cannot take one when it's hurled back at their glass house. And that's a weakness. And I think that as creators, we have to be able to, if you're going to be nice, then people can, if they're not nice to you in response, that's one thing. But if you're going to be, if you're in the glass house and you're just like slingshot, just launching one after one, lobbing them through there, you better be able to take some. And if you can't, then it's going to look bad to the people who are watching. You're not trying to convince that's the thing about critics, right? And this is the thing about debate. Like the people who are, it's more of a discussion tonight, the ISOM thing, but like the two people, they're set, like Sam is critical of ISOM. Rip a guy 808. Guess what? He's probably not going to change his mind on whether or not he thinks that ISOM is the best thing ever when your name is Rip a guy 808. Okay. But no one's trying to change his mind. The reason why he's presenting his love of ISOM is the same reason that Sam is presenting his critiques of ISOM. They're trying to convince everybody else. They're trying to convince the people who are watching. This is great because this is bad because this. That's who you're trying to reach out to. So like when EVS brings up a point, doesn't matter if you like EVS or not, is the point valid? And that kind of goes back to the heart of like the criticism or the critique really that we've been talking about for the last hour or so, is that, where's the critique coming from? Is the critique valid? Is the critique, something about your work? Or is it just coming from a place of malicious behavior? And even if it's coming from someone you don't like, doesn't mean that it's malicious. It can still be something that's a genuine critique, even if you're not really a fan of the person who's saying it.
Right. Because if you take in everything, even criticism that's meant with ill intent, because the people who are criticizing you with ill intent are also looking for weaknesses you have. And if you have any, they're going to point it out.
Absolutely.
And so by taking everything on board, even the out and out criticism, you get a better picture of where you are. Because, I never knew I had big ears until I got to junior high. And suddenly I was being called Spock and things like that. And I was like, what? Where's now? I was like, holy crap, I have big ears. And suddenly I was aware of it. Right.
Right.
But the thing about it is, but the thing about it is any kind of critique, whether it's ill-intended or positive and meant for your good, whether they're trying to tear you down or whether they're trying to build you up, if you have the attitude and take it all on board and throw out the wheat with the chaff, and there's going to be people that are going to blow smoke up your butt and try to and build you up and bigger than you are, and just be a constant hug box, which is what a lot of these big six-figure guys have. It's just a hug box. That's not healthy either.
No.
And so by saying you miss that side of it too. And so basically the truth of critique and the truth of criticism is it's all valuable.
Yes.
It's all valuable.
There's a Bible verse about this where it says, the good book reads that iron sharpens iron. So, our greatest growth, it comes from when we have had something that challenges us. And that's true for writing as well. The best growth and the most improvements that I've made to my writing is when someone pointed out stuff that I missed. So there you go.
Well, when iron sharpens iron, is there a lot of sparks? There's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
true.
sparks.
That's true.
Anyway, all right. I'll let you prepare for your big debate. Um, well, thank you everybody for showing up. I'll do the fluffiest chat and all of YouTube. What's the replay on this one? Since nobody was here at the start, trust me, there's a lot of good stuff on this one.
Yes.
All right, so Vio con Dios, my friend. If you make it to the morning light, I will say hello to you then. Anyway.
See y'all over there.
Watch those
Thanks for
Ripper
joining
fans,
us.
dude. Watch those Ripper
I
fans.
appreciate it.
All right. Okay, that's been Cooper. Yeah, appreciate you, man. That's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics, and remember, follow the white rabbit, and we'll see you next rabbit hole. Bye, everybody.